Welcome to this episode of NandB Sports. I'm Brandon Rowe along with my partner Nick Bolliger. So we have a lot to review. Great week one, I would say. There was a lot of great players that had great games. We're looking at receivers, obviously. And there were a lot of tight games this week. There was 3 games that were decided by 1 point. And there was a handful that were decided by 3.
Yeah,
so
or 2.
3 or less. So what I do want to get into is obviously the first upset of the year, Carolina-Denver. Everyone expected Carolina to go in there and just whoop on Denver. But as we saw, there were some hits on Cam that people didn't approve of. And, Denver just came up on top with their run game. So, final score in Denver was 21-20. So we're going to move on to our next game, Packers versus Jags. You thought the Pack was going to win, and they did. I expected Jacksonville's defense to step up, which they did to a certain extent. The score didn't show that, but you saw that Aaron Rodgers is going to be Aaron Rodgers and just wins games for the Packers.
Yeah, I really thought that was just down to the youth of the Jacksonville defense and the experience of the Green Bay offense.
Right.
You've got Jordy Nelson.
And Jordy Nelson came back and had a touchdown,
Yeah.
so that's great to see. Next game, Kansas City and San Diego. San Diego blew a 21-point lead.
That was a game.
That is Alex Smith. That's prime Alex Smith.
Oh, yeah.
That's just what he does.
That running back, Spencer Ware.
Yeah, Spencer Ware.
Fantastic game.
A running back had 100 yards receiving.
Yeah, that was incredible.
They couldn't stop Spencer Ware. Another great game that I was watching was New Orleans-Oakland. Came right down to the minute. Oakland scored the 2-point conversion. So, do you have any takeaways from that game?
From that game, I think it was just down to the defense. I mean,
Right.
It was just a shootout. Both teams had astronomical numbers on offense.
Right.
I think New Orleans had 2 guys with 100 yards receiving or more.
Yeah, Drew Brees passed for 423 and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah,
so
it's not the fault of the offense that they lost. It just comes down to the defense, essentially.
So Bengals-Jets, I know you were watching that game.
Yeah.
What would you take away from that?
That was a very stout defensive matchup.
You can take away A.J. Green.
Really
from
it came down to A.J. Green and Andy Dalton just pairing up very nicely.
Right. I also heard that they're saying Darrelle Revis is out of shape.
Yeah,
That's what I've been
A.J.
hearing.
Green
Exposed him.
Well, yeah, essentially. They just...
And when Revis was guarding A.J. Green, he was thrown 10 times and had 10 receptions.
Yep.
He averaged 15 yards a catch that game. Those are some numbers.
A.J. Green was unstoppable. Andy
Those are some
Dalton
numbers.
put it where it needed to be.
Right. So the next game, Eagles-Browns, Carson Wentz getting his first start. And as we saw, he was I would
great.
look forward to Carson Wentz making throws that he shouldn't have been able to make. Granted, it was the Browns. I get that. But still, there was tight coverage, and he was throwing dots right to the receiver's hands. So final score in Philadelphia was 24-10. Do you have any takeaways? Or
I think... Didn't Robert Griffin tear his ACL?
He injured his shoulder.
Yeah.
So 4 to 6 weeks on that. They'll reevaluate him on the 6th week.
So I think that really it can either hurt or help them now that I think Josh McGowan is back at the helm. So I think Gary Barnidge can get a little bit more of a look from a pocket passer.
Right.
The more traditional slowed down offense, so your tight end can be utilized more. So I mean, it could help the Browns.
Right. I'd look at a game that wasn't really talked about, Vikings-Titans, where Sean Hill ended up starting for the Vikings and actually winning.
Yeah, that was really interesting to me that he started, even though they gave up a first-round draft pick to get Sam Bradford.
That trade to me was pointless.
Yeah,
Teddy Bridgewater is your future. If I were the Vikings GM, I would keep my future picks to help build around Teddy Bridgewater. And worst case scenario, you tank this year. This draft class is deep. It's going to go 2 or 3 rounds deep. You have probably the best running back core in a draft that I've ever seen. You have Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey. You have receiver from USC. I think his name is Juju. And you have tight ends like Jake Butt from Michigan. And you great offensive linemen. So I think just about all the Big Ten linemen are going.
Yeah,
so.
And who knows who's going to be the, third, fourth, fifth round sleeper that you just pick and the guy becomes, a freak.
Right. So, Texans Chicago final score in Houston was 23-14. Brock Osweiler getting his first start didn't look bad.
No.
I thought he was throwing some good passes and was managing the offense the way that I want him to, and he's looking very clean. So next game was Ravens-Bills, a very low-scoring game. Final was 13-7. Ravens get the win. I expected Tyrod Taylor to take this game over, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, I also expected a big game from Sammy Watkins as well, which didn't.
I think Sammy Watkins re-injured his foot, but I got a report of the past couple days that he's going to play through the pain, which I don't think is a good idea.
No, he's young. He should just rest.
That's what I'm saying. He's your future Steve Smith.
Yeah.
So I would rest him as much as we can. Now down to Atlanta, Jameis Winston had himself a day. 3 touchdowns, 400 yards. 31-24 was the final down there. As we saw, Julio was doing Julio things. Mike Evans had himself a day. Doug Martin didn't do much, but did enough to get a win. Jameis Winston was making great throws. You can tell that he's just comfortable in that offense now. So
another person that, if you're playing fantasy, to pick up is Mohamed Sanu.
That's true.
He's going to take over the Roddy White role, where he's going to be their secondary guy, and Julio is going to draw doubles and
which is going to
get the first team guy. So Mohamed Sanu can have a big season.
Right.
Plus, they have an average run game with two solid running backs.
Yeah. So I know you're a Seattle guy. So looking at this final score doesn't sound good, but 12-10 down in Seattle. They were playing Miami. You have any takeaways from that game?
Well, to take one thing away, the last drive, Jimmy Graham coming back from, obviously that bad knee injury. He had a very big catch to get us into the red zone. It was his only catch of the game. But the fact that they're using,
the fact you're using
the fact that he's there and he's finally coming
used
back.
the way that he was used.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see if we can start using Jimmy Graham better. But on defense, Miami is not really an awful offensive team.
Lamar Miller, Ryan Tannehill.
So to hold them to 10 points was good for me, and that last drive by Seattle was incredible.
Right. So Dallas, New York, 2019. Dak Prescott didn't have a great game, but definitely had a decent game. Same with Ezekiel Elliott, 59 yards and a score. So, and you look at Dak threw 40 times that game, and then Ezekiel ran it 15 times. When you think about it, I feel like they're leaning more towards Dak than they are Ezekiel.
Well, I watched the first half of that game, and then the fourth quarter of that game. In the beginning, Ezekiel really struggled to get through that offensive line, or to get through that defensive line. Really struggled to find the hole.
Right.
And Dak on his first couple of drives had his only 2 incompletions on his first 2 drives were drops that hit the receiver's hands.
Right.
So he looked very comfortable, and he looked very good.
Yeah.
And Ezekiel didn't. Now when Dallas had their bright spots running, when I watched the game, it was with Alfred Morris, a guy that,
thrived in Washington.
Right.
So, on to the next game, Lions-Colts. I expected the Colts to go and just manhandle Detroit. But Matt Stafford did something that I've never seen, and that's stay composed in the pocket. I've never seen him, while pressure's on him, be able to make throws down the field.
This might sound really weird and awkward, but I think losing Calvin Johnson was a blessing to Matt Stafford's career, because he doesn't have that safety option. Tom Brady has Gronk and Edelman. He has 2 safety options, and it helps him be great. Matt Stafford would just get the ball and sling it to Calvin Johnson, put him in awful situations.
You make a great point. When you think about it, their offense wasn't built around Matt Stafford. Right. It was built around Calvin Johnson.
Now I think it's built around Matt Stafford.
Right, because when it came down to it, he was throwing to Calvin, 20 times a game?
Yeah,
and
just about.
20 out of his 30 passes. So it gives him that opportunity. Hey, Golden Tate right here. You have Joik Bell out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have all these, and you have Eric Ebron, who's a rising tight end.
Yep.
It gives him the ability to throw one there, run, play action down the field, and it worked. So the final in Indianapolis was 39-35. Detroit gets the win. Personally, my favorite game, you have Patriots in Arizona. Jimmy Garoppolo getting his first start. Final was 23-21, where Arizona missed a field goal wide left in the closing seconds. A takeaway that I have from this game is definitely Jimmy Garoppolo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most people, when you think about it, you're going to look at a team, and if your starting quarterback is out, you're worried. Like, because he's your guy. Going into this game, I wasn't worried. And the thing about it is when you think, I'm not worried because he's Jim, it's of the level of play Jimmy Garoppolo has. I'm not worried because of Bill Belichick. I mean, Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick. That's all it comes down to. So
see, even though no Gronkowski, Jimmy Garoppolo
played with three different linemen.
Right,
and then the starting lineup.
No Rob Ninkovich. The defense looked great to start that game. They, the young receiver Chris Hogan looked fantastic.
Yep.
Julian Edelman was Julian Edelman.
Malcolm Mitchell had himself a game.
Yeah, Martellus Bennett didn't have a lot of receptions, but he had a fantastic game blocking Chandler Jones.
Yes, he was blocking one of the best pass rushers in the league, and he touched him how many times? Twice?
Yeah.
For a tight end, he's blocking a number one pass rusher twice.
Probably one of the best blocking games I've seen from a tight end.
And so that shows promise. That was definitely one of the things that I was worried about Martellus Bennett, because he's always been a receiving guy.
Right.
That's just what he's done. And Gronkowski he is the best blocking tight end in the league. And to think that we might have the two best blocking tight ends on the team, along with the top three receiving tight end,
it just makes
New England look even more deadly.
Yeah, their offense is going to be so dynamic.
And when everyone comes back and they're healthy.
Garrett Blunt had himself a game.
He did. He rushed for 70 yards and a touchdown. Another thing I want to bring up is when you look at that offense, it's going to be Tom Brady's going to be back by week 5. By week 5, Gronk's going to be back. By week 5, Deion Lewis is going to be back. By week 5, Rob Ninkovich is going to be back. And we play the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. So when you think about it, it's going to be rough to stop them, but I think they can do it. And thanks for tuning in this week to NandB Sports. For Nick Bolliger, I'm Brandon Rowe. See you next week.